Hello everyone, and today I am going to be doing a Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile of my Frog Paleozoic deck. Now just to let you know, this is a budget version. The only really expensive card in here is Totally Awesome. Just to keep in mind, I am a budget player, so I don't have a lot of all those expensive cards, such as Phantasme, Sword, or Permanents. So, yep, let's get right to it. The first and most obvious is 3 Swap Frog. This card is really insane. When this card is summoned, you can send 1 level 2 or lower Aqua Water, something like that, to the grave. So you can send like your dupe, your Ronin Toad, and you can also bounce it back to the hand to normal summon of another frog monster except Swap Frog. And you can also discard a frog to special summon it. The good thing about Swap Frog is only its last effect, where you return it to the hand, is the once per turn. So like if you summon this like 5 times in a turn, you can send like 5 frogs to the grave. It's a really good card. Next, I run 3 Dupe Frog. When Dupe Frog is sent to the grave, it allows you to search one of your frogs. And while this is on the field, your opponent cannot target other monsters for attacks. I run 2 Ronin Toad. This is one of your cards that you want to get into the grave as quick as possible. Ronin Toad allows you to banish 1 frog monster, special summon it from the grave. So let's say you like banish Dupe, it allows you to special summon it from the grave, and this, along with pretty much all the frogs except Swap Frog's last effect, are not once per turn, so you can use this as many times as you want. Next, I run 2 Poison Draw. I mainly run it for Banished Fodder to help me get off Ronin Toad much easier and build very big boards with it. And when this card is sent to the grave, you can draw a 1. It's a really good card. It's mainly for the Banished Fodder. And this is also kind of Banished Fodder, but it's still pretty good if you use it. Essentially, when this card is face up, you can flip it face down, and when it's flipped back face up, you can return monsters your opponent controls up to the number of frogs you control. So like to say you control a flip-flop and a poison draw, flip this up and then you can bounce 2 back. Now for the last of the monsters, I run 2 Effect Veiler. I originally had like 2 or 3 Ash in here, but I just wasn't really getting them off that well. Since Frog Paleozoic is a trap deck, you run actual traps that do stuff like this. Because people run hand traps because it's faster, but most of the times I don't even end up using it. I just end up using one of my other traps. Next we have the Paleozoics. I run 3 Canadia. When you activate this card, you can target 1 monster and flip it face down. All the Paleozoics have simple effects, but their main power is when a trap card is activated, you can chain this and special summon it as a monster. And all the Paleozoics do this. And as added, they are unaffected by monster effects. So this is good against traps. And next, I run 3 Olenotus. This one is your spell and trap destroyer, and again, same effect as all the other Paleozoics. When a trap card is activated, you can chain it to it to special summon it as a monster and unaffected by monster effects. I also run 3 Leonochilia. I just call it Leo. This allows you to target 1 monster that is banished and return it to the grave. This is good to allow you to say bring a Dupe Frog back to your grave and then banish it with Ronin Totem to special Ronin Totem again. Or to get another Paleozoic as a monster. I'll also run 2 Morella. Essentially this card sends a trap to the grave. Usually I'd send just Morella itself to the grave, activate, send Morella. Because this card's only good in the beginning of the game. Once you got your graveyard built up, it's not really going to be much helpful. And the last of the Paleozoics, I run 2 Dynamicious. I was running into problems with 3 because oftentimes I'd clear my hand and have nothing to discard, so I couldn't even activate it. So I went down to 2. And I think that's pretty much a soft spot for it. And now next, the non-Frog Paleozoic cards. I run 3 Reckless Greed. Reckless Greed is a really good card because it allows you to draw 2. It skips your next 2 draw phases, but most of the time when you're activating this, you're not going to need those extra 2 draw phases. Pretty much just end it quickly. Also run 2 Needlebug Nest. It sends the top 5 cards from deck to grave. 80% of what's in this deck wants to be in the grave. Your frogs, you want them in the grave. Your Paleozoics, you want them in the grave. Sure, it sucks if you like, let's say, Needlebug Nest and you get none of the Frog Paleozoics, but most of the time, that's why I run a lot of frogs and Paleozoics. So I have a good ratio. It's good way of getting your resources to the grave. Now as a little protection, I run 2 Storming Mirror Force. Since it's a trap, I can chain Paleozoics off of it. And it's good to clear my monster's board. Instead of sending it grave, sends it hand. But considering a lot of monsters nowadays have effects when they are sent to the grave, and a lot of them don't have effects when they are sent to the hand. I think this is a really good card. You don't really need 3, I think only 1 or 2 is good. Now for the help handle spells, I run 1 Anti-Spell Fragrance and 1 Imperial Order. Anti-Spell Fragrance you can run 3 of. I wouldn't run 3, I'd say more like 1 or 2, because you don't want a lot of continuous traps on the board. Essentially, these cards are to stop spells. It's like good against Sky Strikers or other spell heavy decks. Imperial Order obviously just negates spells in generals. So both of these are really useful against spell traps. Like if you're going against something like maybe Thunder Dragon, probably like side them out because they don't use a lot of spells or traps, but still a good card. Now next, I run 3 Strikes and 1 Warning. I had a Judgment in there, but it was just paying too much, and honestly, this is pretty much all I really needed. Strikes essentially basically just cancel out special summonings. I originally had Lost Wind and a Horn card. I forgot what his name was. But Strike is much more effective. So I think you want to have some sort of monster removal. Like between this and your Storming Mirror Force, you got pretty good protection. I run 1 Infinite Impermanence. I can't afford more, and I was lucky enough to be able to trade for it. I'd like to run more, but 1 is all I have. It's a really good card. So, and last but not least, a card I've been planning to actually make an entire video talking about is Chain Hole. This card is really good. It's really underestimated, and it's essentially a counter for like counters. When your opponent activates a monster effect in response to a card or effect activation, essentially it negates, banishes, and they can banish 1 card from their deck with the same name, and if they don't, you can banish 1 random from their hand. Let's say you activate Dupe Frog's effect to add a frog from deck to hand, and then they Ash Blossom it. You can activate this. This is really good against hand traps because a lot of decks are really killed by the hand traps. So I think running at least 1 of these is good in a lot of decks. Now next, I have the extra deck. And I run 3 Mistar Boy. Essentially, it's kind of like stuff like Hippo Shenigan. This is Radiant. All water monsters gain 500 attack and defense. And if this card is sent to the grave, I can add a water. It's only a link 2, and if it gets destroyed, that's fine. You mainly want it to start getting into your extra deck. Next, obviously, 3, totally awesome. You have to run 3 of these. This card is really powerful. It's got a built-in negate, a special summon from the deck, and an effect when it leaves the field. Unlike the frogs, all these are once per turn. But this card is just so insane. Like, you can activate during the standby to detach 1 material, send 1 special 1 frog monster from your deck. You can, when your opponent activates an effect, you can send 1 aqua monster from either your hand or your field to the grave to negate it, and you also set that card to your field. So let's say they want to activate Foolish Burial, you activate Totally Awesome's effect, then that Foolish Burial essentially becomes yours. It's really good. Like, you can even just take a monster and then just think it away. It's a really good card. Now, since we are running a Frog Paleozoic deck, you gotta have Paleozoic Opibina. I run 2. This card is really good. It allows you to activate Paleozoic traps from the hand. You don't have to set them. And you can also search a Paleozoic trap. Originally I had Homunculus in here too, but I just didn't really like it. I'd rather much get an Opibina out over Homunculus because you can get things much more effectively. And Homunculus, it requires 3 level 2s. This one only requires 2. So it's much easier to get off. Next, I run 2 Proxy Dragons. It's a good generic link too. I mainly need it for the arrows because a normal field that I start out with is usually like a Mistar Boy with Totally Awesome. And then I'd have a Proxy Dragon, which kind of opens me to start building a board. So it's always good to have a proxy. Next, I run Nightmare Phoenix. Spell and trap removal, Nightmare Service, your special summon monster removal, and Griffin, which allows you to set 1 spell trap from your graveyard to your field. And if these cards are co-linked when their effects are activated, you can draw 1. Just really good cards. And now, the last 2 is 1 Bomber Dragon and 1 Borlo Dragon. I wish I had a Boral Sword. You'd want that in here. Probably take that, replace Bomber with it. Maybe just gotta add an extra spot, and Bomber is very good in tight situations, like if you need to just nuke the field. Of course, Borlo's a really insane and powerful card. Now, last but not least, the side deck. I usually side deck to match against the meta. So I run 3 Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. With this card, you can reveal if your opponent controls more monsters than you do. You can discard this card, reveal 1 card in your extra deck, and if they have that card as well, you can banish it. All cards of that name. And that is why I have a Salamangreat Great Violet Chimera, Salamangreat Great Helio, Sky Striker Ace Hayate, and Cyber Dragon Infinity. Essentially, I side deck against Salamangreat Great, Sky Striker, and Cyber Dragons. So by activating this, I essentially banished all that from their extra deck. And if they haven't gotten into it already, it's going to really hurt them quite a bit. Next, I run 1 Super Poly, just because a really good card can be responded to. I already have a Violet Chimera as a side deck, and I'm going against Salamangreat, maybe throw Super Poly in there. I can bring out Violet Chimera for myself. Next, I run 3 Red Reboot. This is a card I'm never taking on my side deck. I've gotten completely destroyed by trap decks like Ulster because I don't have a way out aside from Red Reboot. And it's just a really good card to stop traps, and I think always having at least one in your side deck is a good option because you never know when you're going to go against like an Ulstergeist or another Paleozoic, and this card can just completely shut that deck down. Next, I side deck 2 Heavy Storm Duster. A lot of people probably main deck this, but between Oleanitis and all the other stun cards I have, I usually oftentimes don't need it, but I side deck it just in case I'm going against like maybe a Sky Striker or a card that has a heavy back row, just in case. I also have one Evenly Matched. I was lucky enough to pull it, and I don't think I really need to explain how good this card is. Essentially, you can just destroy your opponent's board. And last but not least, I side deck one Gozen Match. In case I go against something that's like maybe like a Thunder Dragon or a deck that has a bunch of different attributes. And so that's pretty much it. I hope you may have found some cards that were you could probably maybe add to your Frog Paleozoic, or if you want to build that yourself. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next video.